When I woke up this morning, I had no voice, none whatsoever. I went to speak and it was just gone. And I was laying in bed and I just had to laugh because I thought, of all weeks, to pick a title, I am the voice. And I woke up and it was, I have no voice. And I thought, this is very interesting. Why would I wake up on a Sunday and then not have a voice? Now, I know I've been having this beautiful little relationship with clutter, decluttering my life. And I realized that I've been decluttering my body as well and decluttering everything out of me. So I've had like a little phlegm all week. But this morning I wake up and I have no voice. And I was like, so what's the message? Because I go right to, I'm very similar to I was going to say Dr. Nancy. That's short, very soon. To Reverend Nancy, which is, I go right to, what do I need to know here? I'm about to give a talk called I Am the Voice, and I don't have one. What's the deal? Well, I have a great answer to that. But I'm going to start with Nora's lyrics, because they're pretty amazing. First of all, it's great to have a parent sit and listen to their daughter sing, I don't care what anyone thinks. I was like, you didn't have to write a song about it. You could have just told me. You don't want my opinion. That would be if I took it personally, which clearly I don't. So she says, shut out the noise. Apparently that's us, the noise. Shut out the noise and the doubt. Now what she's really talking about is her mind. So take this for yourself. Shut out the noise and the doubt. How many of you have a lot of noise going on in your mind? This side's good. They don't have a lot at all. Right? So we all have a little bit of noise going on in our mind. And usually it's race consciousness, by the way, or all the stuff that you've built up over the years. So shut out the noise and the doubt. I won't open up myself to whatever I'm supposed to be. Now, it's interesting because I had to ask her that. I was like, what are you saying there? She goes, the whole world keeps telling me what I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be. I'm 18 years old, and everybody seems to think they know who I'm supposed to be, including me. I apparently know that too. And she was very clear. She goes, I need to shut all of it out and not follow in the direction of what people tell me I'm supposed to be, but what do I want to be? What is coming through me that's saying, live me? And this really is all about divine inspiration. Do you know who you are enough to actually listen to what you're being told by yourself? So it's really fascinating when she read these lyrics. I was like, good point. I said, you're saying that at 18. I'm happy to say that at 63. Because let me tell you how many people think they know how a minister should behave. And I disappoint so many of them. But it's true. So many people believe that as soon as you put Rev in front of your name, which is why, thank God, I'm a doctor now. I don't even use Rev. I just use doctor, and they can figure out what kind I am. And I didn't realize we had so many how many people in this room can put doctor before their name? Raise their hands. Look at that. That's a lot of people for this room. And I didn't even know that you all had that in front of you. So it goes for all of us to be able to say to ourselves, you know what? Shut out all this stuff that tells me what I'm supposed to be and actually be her next lyric, which is, I am the voice, which is the title of my talk. I am the voice that should mean the most to me. When was the last time your opinion meant the most to you? Some of you are going to be like, my opinion always means the most. Right, honey? We always have this discussion. You know what? We've been together 31 years, and we are two alpha what's that called, behavior? Type A personalities. And it works brilliantly. Did someone just say really as if we didn't know? Yeah. So I am the voice that should mean the most to me. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Then I love her second verse. A lot of songwriters, their first verse, they hit it, and then the second verse, they either repeat it again because they've lost the inspiration, or the second verse kind of loses us. Not this second verse. My head is tired and sore from all the thoughts that aren't mine. Is that not a brilliant lyric? My head is tired and sore. And I know Nora's talking about all of my thoughts that I keep trying to put into her head, right? Yeah. So my head is tired. My head is tired and sore from all the thoughts that aren't mine. Do I give in to what others say is best? People mean well when they all tell you what is best for you. I think about when Dr. Walker said to me, when I first became a minister, he said, now you need to make a decision. You can no longer be an entertainer. You have to get rid of all of the instincts you have about wanting to act and sing and dance and direct. That all has to go away because now you have to be a minister. And I looked at him and I went, no way. I was like, David, that's not going to work for me. He says, then your ministry's not going to work. And I said, well, we'll see, won't we? And so I open up my church, and then another minister comes in who they've assigned to me from RSI, Religious Science International. The first thing she says to me is, it's time for you to give up all this theater stuff. And I was like, is this like, do you all together, do you all talk? And I just listened to her. She said, you can't be a part-time minister. You need to be a full-time minister. And I said to her, I won't say who this was, I said, does it not occur to you that all that you are is used in whatever you do? And why would I ever kill off all the things that I do brilliantly, by my own assertion, in order to do something that I do right now, okay, pretty good, but not all of it. I need to marry them and then be something with all of it. And her straight stone face, it was just like, you'll see. Well, I think I win on this count. So, thank you. So the real point is, don't listen. You know what? There's only one thing to listen to, and that is your true voice within. That's the simplification of this teaching. And Ernest Holmes said it. There is a voice in you that knows exactly who it is and what it's here to do. You don't need to listen to what everybody else thinks. And she says, I love this. Or do I push all that away and chase my dreams my own way? Can I make my own path to take? And then she says, I know now that things will change, and I will be satisfied one day. And I'd like to just change that too. Not the lyric, because it works perfectly. But I know now things will change, and I'm satisfied right now in my body, in my life, no matter what. And I know you are and you should be, because you are amazing. And then she says, only I can change tomorrow. Only I can live for today. Only I can hear the right words to live a better way. This is an 18-year-old. I think you wrote it at 17, right? Yeah. So she wrote it between 17 and 18. So this is someone that grew up in this teaching. How many of you wish you had grown up in this teaching? I know, right? I think about that all the time. If I knew this before I knew I was a worm of the dust, if I just knew this before I knew I had to now literally pray myself into salvation for the rest of my life. This is not what our children are being taught. Our children are being taught who they are, what they have to offer, and to just let it rip and to grow beyond what we're teaching them. And that's for us too. We must grow beyond what Ernest Holmes was even writing about in 1927, because things have changed, things have shifted. And he would be the first one to say, we should be shifting with it. So the title of my talk, as I said, is I Am the Voice. I talked about the thing itself on the first week and the way it works, and the third week is what it does. I said I wasn't going to do this, and then I'm suddenly doing this. But I love this, what it does. So here's the deal. It's a beautiful chapter, what it does. I'm going to take it in one sentence. It does whatever you tell it to do. That's the whole chapter. It does whatever you tell it to do. So I am the voice. If I tell myself, listen to what you are, listen to the truth of what you know, I can get rid of all the other stuff. So here's what he says in the chapter. He says, the infinite knowingness becomes our wisdom only in such degree as we embody its intelligence. He says, it has been said that we can know God only insofar as we can become God. Now, this is 1927 he wrote this. Now, I will tell you, he wrote it in 1927, and here's my impersonation of him writing this in 1927. So he's writing, and he comes up with this. It has been said that we can know God only insofar as we can become God. Oh, that's good. But we can't become all that God is. And then he takes it back in the very next sentence. He says, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you are God. I'm just saying that you are part of this divine intelligence. That's 1927 Ernest Holmes. But I like to just black out that section and just go to this sentence. We can know God only insofar as we can become God. I don't know about you, but I intend to know God 100%, not just 50%, and let the human part of me trail behind, as if there were a human part of me, because there isn't. So, because then in 1960 or 1959, as he was writing his last pieces, he said, all of that, that word was weird to read, but all of that, he said, it is true. We are this thing. I am the I am. He goes on to say, when we stand in the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. When we stand in the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. That means when you actually remember who you are, when you know who you are so clearly, and you stand, as I just found, in that light, you've just shadowed out your whole life, everything else behind you. There is no past. There is no precedent for you to rely on. There is not looking back and figuring it out. There's just knowing it. I am right. I am the voice. And that voice is not a voice that's had to figure it out back here. There's a voice in you that doesn't need to figure out any of this stuff from your past. There's a voice in you that already knows. So when I woke up this morning and I'm preparing this and I was like, how do I talk when I can't talk? I instantly said to myself, wait a minute. Everything that happens in my body is a mirror of what's going on in my mind. Therefore, somewhere in my mind, the divine currents in me are saying, shut up and listen. This is what I say to myself. Okay, so shut up and listen. What do you need to hear? You need to hear something so clear that your voice is being taken away, so you stop talking ahead of what you know. Do you ever find yourself doing that? Where you're just talking ahead of what you know, and that's when you get tongue-tied and say really stupid things? How many of you have said something stupid this week that you remember? Right? We all do. I loved it. In my practitioner class this week, there is a practitioner in our class, who I will not name, of course, who is brilliant, understands this teaching, gets it so clearly, can pick out a core belief, but because this particular practitioner tends to talk before that lands, it's confusing. But for me, I get to sit and listen, and I was listening. I'm listening to the whole session, which I get to do now, and I'm like, he has this. He totally has this, but he's still talking instead of listening to what he has. So afterwards, I just said, you had it. It was perfect. You knew exactly what you're doing, and you talked ahead of it. And I thought to myself, and this was Thursday, I thought, how often do we do that? How often are we so busy being ahead of ourselves that we're not in the truth of who we are? I am the voice. But sometimes I'm talking so loud, I can't hear the voice. And it requires us to just slow down, get quiet, and listen. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: we should get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine currents. We should get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine currents. And I use this quote all the time. How many of you think that you spend a portion of your time on this planet in the center of your bloated nothingness? We do. We tend to literally allow ourselves to be so caught up with the nothingness that we keep talking about. How many times do you turn on MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News and get totally caught up with the bloated nothingness of this country? That's what's going on right now. There is so much junk being analyzed, reanalyzed, talked about. What about this? What about that? It is so nothing compared to what this country is truly at the center of its core, which is love. It's time for us to turn those things off and step back and get back into the light. Right? Step into the light and what is that movie? Step into the light, Carol Ann. Step into the light and is it Carol Ann? Poltergeist. Step into, that's what you want to reference on a Sunday morning. Poltergeist. Step into the light and get rid of CNN. Because sometimes those news stations aren't operating from the light. They're operating from the fear, right? So that's Emerson. We should do well to look to our mind for the answer to all our problems. This is Ernest Holmes. We should do well to look to our mind for the answer to all our problems. So I wake up with no voice, and my instinct is, what's in my mind that needs to clear my voice? And I got quiet, and I had to get quiet. Kevin came in, because I was still in bed with my computer. Kevin came in and said, how you doing? I went, I'm fine. And he was like, oh my, and he left. Because he takes care of the dogs and all on Sundays. So how did this happen? How did my voice come back? I mean, you can hear it's a little Jerry Orbach. That was the 5 musical theater people who understood that. It's very dark. It's gotten very baritone-y, but it's here. I can talk. I can talk fine. I feel fine. And even if it cracks, who cares? How did that happen? How did I go from, I have no voice, to this in 4 hours? Because my mind cleared it away. I shut up, as my divine currents were telling me to do, and listened. You're about to give a talk called I Am the Voice. But what you don't understand, James, I'm hearing to myself, and it's not someone else speaking, it's me. I'm not channeling anybody. Did I just make up fun of channeling? I did, didn't I? Good. So, it's me speaking, and I hear myself saying, I am the voice. Not the talking you're doing, not the words you're saying, not all the things you think you're going to talk about today. You are something so much bigger. You are the voice of the universal mind. You are the voice of truth. That is accessible to you because it's who you are. Whatever you need to know, you already know. You are the voice. I'm like, well, that's my talk. In that range. That's my talk. But I was living my talk, and my voice was saying to me, maybe this is a good way to get you to understand what the real voice is all about. Ernest Holmes said, trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought, which I used at the meditation this morning. Trained thought, and that's funny too. I have never done meditation. Of all days for me to have to take on an extra job of talking, today. Because our meditation practitioner had an emergency, and I said, yesterday I wrote, I'll do it, before I woke up with this voice. And Jonathan said, do you still want to do meditation? I went, absolutely. And this came through for me. Trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. Why is that? It's because trained thought is you listening to the voice that you are and allowing it to come through. Instead of all the untrained thought, which I'll go back to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all of it, all the race consciousness, all the untrained thought, all of the haphazard thinking that people are doing, adding to the race consciousness of this world, so much so that when we live in the middle of it, all we have is untrained thought. And because of that, that untrained thought is causing my life to unfold in accordance to that untrained thought. Ew. Is that what we want? No, I don't want to live my life willy-nilly based on what you all are thinking. And I don't mean you all, although maybe. I don't know what you're thinking, but I know what I'm thinking. And I know what I want to be thinking. That's trained thought. Trained thought is thought that comes from that universal voice that knows who it is and informs you. So we have to take a step back sometimes and, as my mind said to me, shut up or shut out the noise. So you have to train your mind. So I have 3 things for you to think about. 1, get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine currents. Start to identify your bloated nothingness. And bloated nothingness means an overinflated understanding of who you are that's not based on the truth. So get out of the way. Notice when it comes up. How many of you have ever found yourself in an argument where you are arguing for your point of view, even though halfway through the argument you knew you were wrong? I know I'm not the only one that does this. I know you do. Yes, Juan. Yes. Right? I know. And halfway through, but I'm not going to say I'm wrong. I'm winning this argument because I'm a good debater. Not with you. I know that. So my bloated nothingness needs to be identified and eradicated. How many of you would like to do that? The rest of you are like, I'm keeping mine. Works for me. Get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine currents. That's really the point of this. Get it out of the way so you can let the truth come through. Get it out of the way so you can actually know who I am. It's time to know who I am. The second one is you have to train your mind, obviously. And the third one is remember who you are. We don't spend enough time talking about this one. Remember who you are. So last night, as I said, I went to a sound bath. You know, it's interesting. Nick Williams always corrects me if I say church instead of center. And I understand that. And here's the deal. There are many people who have a hard time, have a problem with the word church. And most of that is because we were raised in churches where we didn't feel good. It didn't make us feel good about ourselves. In some churches, and I really do, I love Catholic Church. I love all religion now. But from what I understand, I'm happy I'm standing here, embracing all of it. So this understanding of church and center and what is it? So a new place opened up in Studio City called The Den. And Karen Needle mentioned it to me, and I was like, well, I wonder what that is. So I looked at it, and I walked in one night, and it just had this unbelievable energy, this great feeling. And the group of people, and it was packed, the age range was 20s and 30s, and then some 40s and 50s. But it was a youngish feeling. But it was a feeling that really worked for me, bless you. And so I thought, well, I need to take a class here. So I finally did. Yesterday, I took a morning class, a meditation class, and it was a class where they used crystals and all, and I thought to myself, and there was someone in there from the center, and she was like, I never thought I'd see you using crystals. I said, but let me be clear. I'm not here to use crystals, but if she wants to put crystals all around my body, that's fine. Whatever that energy is about, it is done unto you as you believe. I believe I'm here to meditate, and whatever tools are being used, have at it. Doesn't matter. Ironically, with the 40 people in the room, I got all this attention from this woman. I never spoke to her. But all I could feel, she kept putting more crystals on. I thought, I'm going to be buried alive in crystals because I decided to go do a crystal class. And at one point she said, some of you will have more crystals when you wake up. And I was like, more? It was like the kid from Oliver, more? And so when I woke up, there were crystals all over here. There was one on my forehead. There was on my neck, all around my perimeter. And I was like, it's kind of cool. I feel kind of cool. Do I believe that crystals have any energy? I believe that it is done unto you as you believe, and if you believe the crystals are great energy, then crystals will work for you. I think the same thing about rosary beads for my Aunt Agnes, who sits in front of the Blessed Mother, saying the Hail Mary 30 times, and let me tell you, that woman demonstrates because she believes. And it's the very thing Jesus taught. It's done unto you as you believe. So I'm sitting there and I do that, and then I do the sound bath, which was last night. I'd signed up for the sound bath. And when I got there, a number of our congregants were at the sound bath. And it was a beautiful sound bath. It's an hour of nothing but sound, and it's just remarkable. After the sound bath, I met these two young gentlemen who were twins. And I kind of knew that. We'd seen them in the neighborhood weeks before. And I remember them walking by going, those two guys are either identical twins or a living example of the law of attraction. And I kind of wanted to ask them, are you brothers? Are you twins? And so they were out there, and one of them said hi to me, and I started talking to them, and I said, you guys are twins, right? And I went, yeah. I said, are you identical twins? And they were like, no, we're not. And we had this great talk, and I asked them what they did, and they asked me what I did. I said I was a minister. And it was like, they were like, really? Of what church? I said, well, it's called the Global Truth Center. Really? What do you teach? And I explained the whole concept of God being, and they were Christian, and of God being one thing. I said, if we're going to teach that God is everywhere, and by the way, I learned that in the Baltimore Catechism of Catholicism, God is everywhere. If we're going to be taught and believe that God is everywhere, how can I be left out of everywhere? I have to be God. The Baltimore Catechism didn't teach me God is everywhere and you're somewhere else. It's God is everywhere. And they just looked at me and they went, makes sense. And I thought, that's the simplicity of this teaching. If we can just get to the point where we can understand this teaching, so much so that we can tell a complete stranger what we believe, and they say, makes sense, we've done our job. And it's that simple. It is that simple to understand this teaching from such an easy way of understanding. What does it do? It does whatever I allow it to do. So as you go through the rest of this week, I really want you to get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine currents. There is a voice in you, and there is a voice in me, that when you're in your voice and I'm in my voice, we're in the same voice. And if this world ever bothered to really drop into that voice, and if everyone on the planet dropped into that voice at the exact same time, everyone would recognize that they were one with every other person on the planet. And if we did that, everyone would be walking around looking at each other and saying, makes sense. Love only. It makes sense. Why would we do anything other than love when we're all one people on one planet, one person? That's what oneness is. So when songs like Nora's come through and say to us, stop listening to anything other than yourself, it's a way that this universal creativity is teaching us. You are God, not a piece of God, not one with God. You are the entire ocean in a drop. You have the entire ocean to listen to. So I think we should start listening to the entire ocean and not just living in our little drop. Because as soon as we do that, our lives are going to transform so profoundly that everyone will be looking at you saying, I want what she has. Namaste.